now let us move on to the first panel discussion of the day, and the topic is going to be the game has changed. Your panel outline would be riding the ICT digital wave, adopting new approach to embrace changes, leveraging new technologies to generate new revenue streams, and what is next for the telcos. Your panelists for the talk right now is going to be Mr. Hazem Metwally, CEO for Etisalat Misr, Mr. Jacek, Passia, Regional Executive and Program Director for Vodafone Partner Markets, Mr. Ahmed Mekky, CEO for Fiber Misr, Engineer Mohamed bin Amor, Secretary General for AICTO, and Dr. Ahmed Sindi, CEO for Dawiyat. Your moderator will be Mr. Ghazi Atallah, CEO for NXN. Let's give it up for our panelists.
So good morning, and thank you again for your attention and time. And this is hopefully going to be a very interesting panel. We've got a nice variety of speakers. We've got operators, we've got infrastructure providers, solution providers, government organization, global players with partner responsibility. So I think it's going to be a nice variety of speakers and a good topic in terms of discussion. So the game has changed. And as introduced, the panel is to talk about how and why has the game changed. And what I'd like to do is ask each panelist to, just from their perspective, take a couple of minutes, and we'll just go through the panelists one by one. Take a couple of minutes to talk about how and why the game has changed. Just give us a perspective from your point of view about the change in terms of business, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of technology. You can each, of course, tackle it from your own point of view, and then we'll go back and address specific questions to each one of the panelists. So, Mr. Ahmed, maybe starting with you.
Assalamu alaikum, sabakum Allah bil khair. The game has changed quite a bit. For example, the case of Dawiyat. We have taken a substantial network, a network of fiber optic connectivity exceeding 90,000, I repeat, 90,000 kilometers, the largest in the MENA and the Middle East region. This network has been built by the power company. We have lit this 90,000 kilometers of fiber, and we have transformed it into a full-fledged telecommunication company. However, and present in 13,000 cities and villages. But the idea is not to compete with operators. The idea is to offer a neutral infrastructure. This neutral infrastructure is provided to the local operators, enabling them into their business. For example, when we go 5G, the idea is to provide towers that are powered and are connected with fiber. So fiber is here to stay. Mr. Dawiyat just mentioned a while ago that he has seen a spike in the data usage. Now, how do you expect to backhaul this expected substantial spike? You backhaul it with fiber, which the technology of backhauling and transmission capacity is going crazy. So just to give you an example, when Dawiyat, 2 years ago, we went and connected homes by fiber to home, part of the Ministry of MCIT Broadband initiative. We are connecting about 750,000 homes. 2 years ago, we have given dedicated 1 gigabit, I repeat, 1 gigabit dedicated capacity to each home. Now, this is substantial. This is very much comparable to 5G, and when you improve the optics, thanks to our partners in Hawaii, this could double or triple or quadruple very, very soon. So the idea is we have taken an initiative, fiber to home, it reached, exceeded our reach to the client, and when you reach the homes, you also reach the towers. Now, this is a pretty interesting business model that we're pushing, and the core idea is that it is neutral. So you do not compete with your service providers, you enable them.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Very interesting. Just as an intro to the topic, I'd like to just move on with our panelist, Hazem. Your perspective, and we heard this morning very interesting discussion from PCCW, and then after that from Etisalat, on how the game has changed and what are operators doing to address that. Please go ahead and tell us from your point of view.
I think, thank you very much for having us. I think the operators are going to bear a big burden of what is going on in terms of transformation of the customer needs. The technology has come in and the operators had to make sense and to tailor this technology to our customers. I think the main change that we are seeing now is how our customers, whether it's consumers or enterprise, the type of demand they have now from their connectivity. When it used to be voice, now we are talking about millions of customers who have completely different expectations. The invention of the smartphone has changed the way they consume our products, but also has changed the way they are approaching the internet. And the operators are in the center of this ecosystem because they have to be there every day for the customers, making sure that the connectivity happens, making sure that the service is there. That's for the consumers. For the enterprise are starting to see operators differently, especially when we talk about big projects, when we talk about transformational projects, when they want to embrace and adopt the new technologies. The operators with their operational ability are very well positioned to partner with governments, large enterprises to bring this to reality for the enterprise.
Okay, thank you. I will come back to that. So talking about being a key partner for enabling transformation across government and enterprise, we will come back to that in a bit. Ahmed, from Fiber Misr's point of view, being a digital solution provider or infrastructure provider, give us your perspective on how and why the game has changed.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. Okay, just it's a very exciting start of the new decade. This is a new era. It's a digital transformation era. I think we all agree on that. So looking at the game change, the changing of this game is coming from all the different levels. So looking at the bigger pictures from continents or nations' point of view, digital transformation now is not a question of if or if not. It's only a question of when, and second question is how. So this is a game changing from the bigger picture. Looking at more in specific, there are new players will have bigger room to play, more room for innovation and innovative ideas, creative ideas, disruptive ideas on this era. It's an era that will stay for a number of years. Let's say this decade, the coming decade, we will see a lot of new players. They have to collaborate together. Operator, system integrators, regulators, technology providers, of course, all should collaborate together in this game-changing era. So this is, if we, in the history, there are different eras for changing from different kinds of powers and technologies. Now this is the era of the ICT. This is the era of digital transformation. It's definitely catalyst for the development of any sector, economical or non-economical. I cannot imagine any sector in this decade can make any development without actually depending in somehow on the ICT infrastructure. It's coming in everything, in education, healthcare, transport, everything, banking. So this will require a lot of work collectively, and also the room here for collaboration from the point of view of infrastructure sharing. neutral infrastructure. So, because we cannot continue on burning capital model that's used to be the case because there was maybe no other options for investing in capitals to help the operators to operate, to do their main job. Now, operators needs to be supported, needs more help and support from different stakeholders for sharing infrastructure, coming in parallel with the sharing economy that's happening already, that what we are seeing in like the ride hailing and different kind of services that sharing assets, sharing infrastructure. So I see these are different aspects of game changing. Maybe we'll talk more about it when we have...
Absolutely, Ahmed. Then thank you. And I want to come back to you later and talk about how you partner and where are the boundaries between your role and the telco's role and the other players' role as we create this collaboration model. It will be an interesting topic, I'm sure. Jacek, from a global player and a player that's working in the region on a partnership model, how has the game changed and why?
Thank you. I fully agree with Hazem. Digital transformation is definitely a game changer. We started our digital transformation in beginning of 2017, so we have been doing for a couple of years. But I would like to focus as game changer on Europe. We are, as Vodafone, a global company, but actually Europe bringing 80% of our revenue. And what happened this year in Europe, there are two game-changing factors. Number one, in July, European Commission approved our acquisition of Liberty Global. Now we are the biggest NGN network across Europe. So we moved from traditionally being mobile operator to now being the biggest player in fixed. Our NGN network passes 54 million homes in Europe. We have 22 million TV customers. As a pay TV player, we are number 2 in Europe. Ahead of Vodafone is only Sky. Sky has around 24, 25 million customers, so not that big gap. And having such a strong base of fixed line customers and TV customers changed the game, because now we see our customers as households, not as individual SIM holders, so to say. And as well, when you have TV customers, they are used to unlimited data usage, of course, at home. Mm-hmm. So what we decided as well this year to introduce unlimited data packages for our mobile users. And what plays very nicely with this, that at the same time we introduce 5G. We have 5G now live in 7 countries in Europe, in 58 cities. So now having this largest NGN and 5G network in Europe is definitely a game changer for us.
Excellent. So we want to talk about a little later about how you can bring that expertise, that knowledge, and into the region through your partnership models, and talk about how that value is exchanged and transformed. Engineer Mohamed, from a government ICT organization standpoint, how do you look at the change that's going on from a telecom perspective?
Yes, thank you, Ghazi, and good morning, everyone. We are living now a new era of data, and where data is available in all aspects of our life. So we are using at the same time data, and at the same time we are producing data. And this movement of using and producing is feeding data centers. And these data centers are taking data about all of us and about all things, and they can give us more information and can give us a lot of prediction when we use some data analysis. So now, today, we are using a new vocabulary like virtual reality, and sometimes robots are asking humans if they are not robots and we are used. And a few years ago, we cannot imagine that we will be asked by robots. So things has changed. And why we are living this change? According to Kondraev, which is a Russian economist, he said that technology revolution are made by different waves. And each wave is, lasts almost 15 years at that time, in the early of 1930s. And these waves starts by first period of an economic growth, and after that we will move to decline. But what we are seeing today is that the cycle of waves is becoming shorter and shorter, and at the same time the complexity is getting an exponential way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We will come back to that and talk about how would actually government ride that wave of the next wave of technology transformation, digital transformation. Dr. Ahmed, just coming back to you now. And as you said, you are the service provider of service providers. So you're actually enabling telecom operators through your capabilities, through your services, through your infrastructure. What kind of business models, what kind of partnership models are you putting in place to actually make that happen? How are you creating that kind of partnership with those service providers?
What we do is offer infrastructure in a neutral way. So, for example, let's talk about 5G. We have introduced a new model whereby we offer a tower that is connected, backhauled by fiber, and we provide power to it. So instead of the operator spending capex on it, we transform this asset into an OPEX model, which can be shared by other operators. So it's a one-stop shop, if you will, better utilization of cash. Operators do not need to replicate the same type of asset. Also, when we go into, let's say, big real estate projects, we also build the infrastructure, including the inside building system. And then we offer it to operators so they can make use of this infrastructure. This way, you literally try to speed up the introduction of 5G and other services, and you make it as competitive as possible so the operator can focus on the software issue, on the client-facing applications and services, and not worry about the infrastructure layer. Another excellent example is with our partner in the data center. We are about to complete the largest data center in the MENA region. 24 megawatts of power, 8,000 square meters of computing space. This is to offer cloud services. We do not offer the cloud service, but we offer the infrastructure that will enable the cloud service provider, be it a telco company or be it a cloud service operating company, to come and make use of such an asset. Now, this asset also, coincidentally, come with some significant fiber connectivity. This fiber connectivity then is also offered in a shared basis so that the data center or the cloud computing client has his choice of all the service providers, which means that at the end of the day, the cost to the consumer is reduced substantially. So this is what we are trying to promote and to ease, if you will, the need to significantly deploy capital. One of the things that we also done, we have participated in the National Broadband Initiative. This is a broadband by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, spearheaded by the Ministry of Telecommunication, MCIT, whereby they have designated 2 million homes to be connected by fiber to home. Our portion of the connectivity, which we've completed about 500,000 homes, and we have 250,000 to go in the next few months. We offer that to the service provider to provide the end service to the home. So it is based on a shared model, so that the service provider focuses on, well, I'm gonna get maybe interesting content. Maybe I'm gonna get Netflix. Maybe I'm gonna get other services, and he doesn't worry, nor does he have the CapEx burden on his back.
Sure.
So then the competition is done based on the service and service platforms.
Interesting, and if I may, I'm going to ask you a question about the incumbent. So what you're doing is actually providing infrastructure that is, or you're investing in infrastructure, and you're sharing that investment, and by providing it equally to all players in the country. Now the incumbent typically holds that infrastructure, and previously held that infrastructure, and was somewhat of an advantage to the incumbent. How, and for the newcomers, it's somewhat of a disadvantage now that this is, if you want, a level playing game.
Exactly.
How is the incumbent dealing with this, and how are the newcomers dealing with this?
Well, incumbents are learning that, you know, to be kinder and gentler, I guess.
and focus on the upper layers of the service.
Exactly. And we see Etisalat going that way. We see STC going that way. Both of them are investing heavily in platforms and other services. So at the end of the day, this is boon to the consumer rather than the traditional telco business model.
Clear, interesting. Maybe we'll get some questions about this later from the audience. Hazem, so, you know, again, going back to the discussion that we saw this morning, we have different players. The telco itself is kind of morphing, changing, looking at the role it's going to play. We have players at the infrastructure level. We have players at the data center level. We have digital transformation player. We have the telco at the core in the middle. And as you mentioned just earlier, the telco can play a key role in delivering the final outcome to customers. Now, what do you think the type of partnerships and the type of technologies that would enable you as a telco to go after government digital transformation? What kind of partnerships would you be looking at? Because clearly now the telco cannot do everything on their own. They need to create that ecosystem around them. What kind of partnerships would you be looking at, and what kind of technology would you be interested in pursuing into the market?
I think the role of IT is going to be very important. Internally in a telco, the profile and role of IT in making that transformation is extremely important because IT is really at the center of this change. Now, having development capability being outsourced through IT, being outsourced to create the products, and also the system integrators out there, and whereby the telco can play in, especially in large projects, whereby the telco can play a role of being the master integrator, if you will, of other integrators, and the master project management. And a very important part as well for the large projects, for sure, is that the operator by nature has an operational capability that is, because operators are very good at managing scale. So the operational focus and the operational capability can provide a unique advantage in managing those projects on the ground. For example, on smart cities, the operators can play a role in managing the smart grids, in managing the IoT platforms for the smart city management. Because this is something that they are used to. They are used to availability, they are used to round the clock, and as such, that know-how can play a big role. So part is in the development of the project, and then running the project itself. The operator can play a part in both.
Interesting. So when you talk about the operator playing the role of somehow the MSI, the Master Systems Integrator, and the capability to take on large projects and to take on projects that are complex, which typically players in the industry are not able to do so. This would be your focus. Now, how would you distribute this pie, if I can call it that way? So you have a large, complex smart city project, and you need to provide create that ecosystem. How would you distribute this pie? What kind of players would you include in this ecosystem?
I think it will always depend on the project itself. Like we have played in different opportunities so far, and every project has this unique nature. But at the end of the day, those principles of the scale and the ability of the operator to focus and bring big scale players in, also the financial ability and the operational ability will continue to be the common factor across whichever project that comes in.
Clear. Thank you. Ahmed, again, talking about, you mentioned previously that you were engaged in large projects, smart city projects, smart education projects, and as a solution provider, as an infrastructure provider, probably partnering with some of the telcos. How did that go? What was the model that you adopted? Give us an example of one of the projects that you rolled out and the kind of ecosystem that was created to deliver on the outcome.
Okay, great. We started 2 years ago in Egypt. We believe that this was the right geography to start from at the right time. As I mentioned, that a key enabler actually for doing digital transformation is the strategy of the country, the nation strategy. So Egypt already answered the question of when shall we move to digital transformation. They already started 2 years ago. So we found that Egypt is the right place to start. As a big country, we can build great references for us because we have ambitious plans to be a player working on a regional play with a big focus on the African continent. So we see what's happening in Egypt will be replicated in all the other countries. So we started to address mega and strategic projects, key projects like digital transformation in education. We got awarded this as a system integrator and infrastructure provider, the infrastructure for the secondary schools. This was the first phase 1, 2,530 schools. This number in Egypt is just a pilot. So this is around maybe 5% or less of the government schools in Egypt. Government schools in Egypt, around 60,000 schools. So we deployed that. The trend of this phase is the speed. We have to move fast. We have to deploy fast. And we don't want to lose any more time. So we led this project. We were the prime contractor. It was a big challenge. We have to deploy this in 27 governorates in 1 million square meter and in 4 months. This was really a big challenge, including the order to suppliers, technology providers. We didn't start as a cloud. This was a start. So the first phase is edge-based. So we have servers in schools, big capex, comparable to if we go cloud, which we assume this is going to be the coming phases, inshallah. So we divided the project in 2 parts between passive and active, which is the same model that we also have plans to apply in the infrastructure sharing, starting passive and going active after that. But for the coming couple of years, we will focus on the passive side, on the infrastructure sharing. Back to this specific project, we handled both the passive infrastructure and the active infrastructure. We have different technology providers supporting us, including Dell, Huawei, and Cisco. So there are many technology providers who are involved with us in this project. We were the prime contractor. We'll be able to manage all of that in all of these sites. So 2,530 sites to deploy and enable these sites to be able to provide connectivity to students in classrooms with connectivity. I'm very proud that my country already subsidized the cost for the tablets for students. I think this is a very, I don't know, but up to my knowledge, I don't know any other country did that, which is a good start. In May 2019, there were in grade 10, in government schools in Egypt, there was more than 500,000 students are having their exams and their certifications concurrently online. This is a record. I don't think this record, nobody achieved it before. It's only a start. We'll continue on that. This is only phase 1. We just got the contract 2 weeks ago for grade 11 and 12. We're planning Q1 2020 to start the contract for the preparatory schools. We're starting by 12,000 schools. So this is just an example of digital transformation that is making an effect immediate and for the coming generations as well.
Thank you, Ahmed. Very interesting. 500,000 is almost half the population of many of the countries around the region. So scale and numbers are substantial. I'll come back to you later, and I want to talk about some of the challenges that you faced in this project and how you overcame these. Jacek, so you talked about the evolution of Vodafone in Europe and the capabilities that you've now garnered. How, through the partnership programs that you have and the models that you have, how are you actually bringing that experience into the region, and what kind of partnerships are you also bringing along with that? What are the models that you can?
Well, we have partners in well over 40 countries around the world. Here in the region, we have as well a number of partners. Our recent example of partnership is Oman, where we got agreement this year with Omani investors to launch Vodafone Oman, which we're going to launch second half next year. And this is an example where we're going to bring the best of Vodafone to launch a new operator, which will be a digital-first operator, very radically different than existing operators in the market. And until now, we're enjoying great support from the regulators. So thanks to Dr. Ahmed, great support from the government of Oman. So we see good environment. And if you have this kind of environment that you get, the best practice from a global player into environment which is very supportive, is what Ahmed was saying about the government in Egypt. You can do a lot of good things.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. I want to, if you don't mind, get ready with your questions while we continue with the panelists. Please get ready. If you'd like to ask questions, we're going to open it up for audience questions very soon. Engineer Mohamed, we talked about riding the digital wave, the ICT wave. What can you tell us? How is that happening from a government perspective?
Yes, I think that for governments, the objectives of future ICT policies in the context of this new wave should include not only focus on infrastructure and technology, but also on the existing of new institutions that will deal with this convergence and inclusion and consumer protection. So we cannot anymore talk about regulation of only ICT, since everything is convergent, and we are speaking about ICT for health, for education, for transport, energy, and so on. And we need to build institutions that can embrace this convergence and be able to regulate while promoting investments and innovation. So a new level of but trust is required also. So beyond anything in our history, we must trust the system that manage and process the data, the people and partners who access the data, and the fundamental technologies and processes that protect the data. So government should sustain their traditional role in investing in infrastructure and ensuring universal access, but more importantly, they should partner with all stakeholders to enable the required environment to embrace this change and generate considerable values for telcos, entrepreneurs, and also for citizens.
Okay, thank you. Data is always playing an important role in how government regulates and puts policies around data and enables the use of data by, of course, everybody in the ecosystem, government itself, telcos, private sector, individuals. I think this is a very important question that has not been answered clearly in the region. Few governments actually attempted to answer that question. It's not an easy question to answer. It's not a framework to put in place data governance, data policies that govern the way government would use data. How would government exchange data between itself? How would government exchange data with the private sector to individuals, and so on. So this is, I think, a very important question to answer, and I think every regional, either government entity or a ministry or regulator should be looking at answering. Some of the government entities in the region have attempted to do so. I'd like to talk while the audience prepares questions. You know, what's next for you? If I can look at, on one hand, what keeps you up at night? What are the things that you worry about from a Dawiyat perspective, organizational perspective? And then what's next from you for where would you like to focus on, technology or markets? So what keeps you up? What keeps you worried? And then what's next for you 2020 and beyond?
Growth is really what keeps me up at night. So what is the next line of growth? For Dawiyat to grow and build data centers in the region is something very important that we're eyeing. We're trying to build another data center in Riyadh, and we're also discussing with our friends and colleagues in Egypt, possibly maybe we could do something over there. And I think to also grow in the region, I think this is very important, whereby some significant capital and know-how can be brought in and work in a collaborative manner. When you think about the position of Saudi Arabia in the heart of this region, Saudi Arabia possesses a substantial power grid. And this power grid is being connected to Egypt, to Iraq. Already we have the GCCI. Why do I mention power grid connectivity in a telco conference? The reason why I mentioned it is it comes with substantial fiber availability. So when Saudi Arabia connects to Egypt, it's not only the power, but also it comes with substantial fiber connectivity. Now you start linking the two things together. When you build a data center and you connect power, all of a sudden you have connected data centers, and you connect the whole region with power, with fiber, and you have your cloud computing. You do this at the same time when the whole region, like Etisalat, is investing heavily in 5G in Egypt and the region. And STC and others are doing that. So when the telco operators are investing in 5G, also infrastructure providers are following up, sometimes leading, sometimes in certain areas, so that the two go together. And let's complicate things a little bit, just one more time.
Please.
Imagine now when utilities, power utilities, they have their own smart meters. You know, Saudi Arabian Electricity Company now has announced or is about to sign an agreement to deploy 10 million smart meters. We just heard how important the smart meters are. Now immediately they're in big data. Now imagine if they extend their reach into some domain that is typically held by the telecommunication companies. Now then it gets very interesting.
Should the telecom providers across the region be worried, or data center providers across the region be worried
I don't
about
know.
the expansion?
I guess time will tell.
Time will tell.
You know?
Please get ready with some questions. Just to continue on while we take a question up front. Hazem, same question for you. What keeps you up at night? What are you worried about organizationally or business-wise? And then where are you going to be focused 2020 and beyond about customers and technology?
I think Dr. Ahmed put it well. Growth, I think, is the worry of anybody who's working in that. If you also think about 5G with its investments, and we think about the use cases, the next thing you think about the economics. How is that going to work? I think Hatem Douidar put that very well. The business case for 5G needs to stack up, and we need to be able to find that, to carve out that value that makes the business case lucrative, or even not shredding value out of telcos. As for the future, and in the context of growth, for us, we have in Etisalat Misr, we have managed to shift the way our consumers. I talked a little bit about enterprise. I'll talk now about consumers. We managed to shift the way our consumers are consuming our products. We built products that were digital from bottom up. So the way the customer uses our product is designed to be from the digital space. The initial view was to try to reduce the contact rate and make the customer connected with us through digital or through the product through the digital channel. But what ended up happening is that we created so many more use cases. It's not only about waiting for your bill at the end of the month. The customer interacts with our product during the month in a much more substantial way, which I believe is a good thing, because now we have real estate that the customer is interested in and looking at all the time. And our view and vision now is how we can leverage that and cross-sell into other customer interests like music and sports and games, and and we are seeing initial success in that space. So we believe that is going to help us stay relevant, because it's very, very important that we stay relevant, we stay active with our customer, and I believe this is going to be an important way forward for us. And of course, also Hatem touched on that, the part about the financial inclusion. This is a big opportunity for us in a market like Egypt. So all the financial services are going to play a key role for us when it comes to growth. And we know for us it's not important, it's almost do or die. We have to stay in that space, and we need to leverage our scale and our reach to play a big role in that financial inclusion.
Interesting. So
Can I make a comment?
Please.
So you're talking about something like Etisalat Pay or one of these,
Yes.
or something similar. Now just think about that for a minute. Imagine if the power utility company steps in there and offers an identical service.
Correct.
And start taking some of that value. So literally, what is now interesting, now there are entities that were not in the same domain, and now they're becoming in the same domain, and the trouble is they come with substantial financial strength, and they come with substantial customer base. So now, all of a sudden you could find giants. I'm not going to say fighting. I say they're dancing, and
Everybody's trying to have a foot in the door with their wallets.
Exactly.
And with
so
that's
this
why
it becomes very interesting.
Yeah, that's why I talked about staying relevant. And that's why I talked about the real estate is that we have created is the way that our customers are consuming our products on the digital space. We are taking a lot of the screen time now.
Yes.
We don't only look at how many customers are using per day, but we're looking at the frequency that they're using with. And now we are starting to work with their interests. So if somebody is interested in music, we try to put a music proposition there for them to work with and so on. So the segmentation is going to be very important. The utilities, I think a telco tries to upgrade itself from a utility, and I think we are well positioned to do that more so than the power grids.
I think the answer is yes. They definitely have something to worry about because it seems like
Correct.
this is an interesting wave.
Exactly.
But also, what you're mentioning is important about telcos being more digital. You know, we talk about digital transformation, but we don't talk a lot about the telco's internal digital transformation. Examples of what you're saying, providing digital services. And through that interaction with your customers, you're in a position to understand much more about insights around the customer behavior, interest, and so on, so that you can address them better as time goes on. You can address them actually much quicker than before. Tony, you have a question?
In fact, I had a question because we last 2, 3 years, 4 years, we're talking about infrastructure sharing. But it seems I have two friends who are doing this against this new trend. Okay, so Dawiyat, one of them. Okay, new infrastructure company provider. Fiber Misr also, Mekky, same. So what's going?
We decide.
Are you competing with the incumbent operator or what's?
The answer is yes. He just said that. He will
just
be
said that.
extending into the whole region.
I didn't
It's not
answer yet.
competing.
Are you using also the question? Are you using STC infrastructure, or you do all the civil engineer, all the infrastructure by yourself?
Well, for Dawiyat, our mission is to take the excess fiber capacity, the Saudi electricity company, and turn that into a new value proposition. So we've done so, but we did not just stop there. We have really been empowered by Vision 2030, and we have went beyond that. We have ridden on the government digitization initiatives. So we have went and participated. We're actually the second largest participant after the incumbent in the national broadband initiative. So not only we have transformed the excess fiber capacity of the grid into a telco grade network, but we have went beyond that and we went fiber to the home deployment. When you do fiber to the home deployment, immediately you can do fiber to the tower. And then you start also looking at data centers. So all
Infrastructure sharing with STC at all?
No. We do very much. When we build, when we say we have this power grid and we lit it up, it means STC can very much use this facility. This network basically is the core network that Zain and its 5G rides on it almost in its entirety. So this power grid actually enabled a full-fledged telecommunication service provider who's doing absolutely fantastic. The same network is being also offered to Mobile, but obviously depends on. I think it's not rocket science that the incumbent has much bigger footprint than the new competitor.
For sure.
So their use of your network is significantly lesser than the competitor who's in the growing mode, but you immediately provide him with infrastructure, so that shortens his time to market.
Thank you.
Ahmed, please go ahead and answer that question and other questions from the audience. Ahmed.
Okay, Tony, thank you. So I see the room for collaboration is more than the room for competition, actually. With the need now for more infrastructure, much more, for the digital transformation needed in all the verticals, in different industries, and education and transport and banking and all of these sectors. And I'm talking about Egypt and expanding this to Africa. There is still a need for more investment in infrastructure. Burning capital model, as I mentioned, cannot continue and cannot actually, with the same way of every operator building their own infrastructure. So infrastructure sharing is a collaboration with the operators. It's not a competition from my point of view. Let's talk about maybe the tower sharing or fiber infrastructure. Extending this to the data center, we are also investing in that. We can look at it from the cloud operator's point of view, or also building the data center itself. A detailed answer to this point will be in a different session. We have a solution from our point of view, an innovative solution that we will be in a different session today. Tony, I think we will present our solution for that we see a solution for the whole continent, which is, we see it's a land of opportunities, Africa, and land of also resources are there. Digital transformation is happening there. You need a new innovative model, which cannot be led only by telcos. It cannot. There are many players should be there. Yeah. So we put a model, we see it's innovative, there is a room of innovation. We're coming with a new model, completely new model. We believe this is the model for digital transformation that should be trusted by leadership for nations. We will only be addressing the nations that they believe in digital transformation. It's not our job to convince them with digital transformation. This is not our job. We'll be only there when this country or the leadership of this country or the national plan of this country is going for digital transformation. It answers the question of when. So we will go with the how. How, it's not only technology providing, it's many, many things together, collectively, and part of it is infrastructure enabling. We provide the infrastructure as a service. Operator provides service to their customers, users with different kind of types, end user, enterprise, and all of that. So operators will keep having the lead for fronting and dealing directly with customers and end users and enterprises. But of course, with this, needs to be supported by infrastructure providers. I see this is the room here. Just to answer your question that, the other part for the projects that maybe we did.
Quickly, please, Ahmed, yes.
Exactly.
We have a big sign in front of us that says time's up. So, but we're going to continue for a few minutes because this is interesting.
Just in a minute. The vertical that I mentioned to education, there are other verticals already that we deployed projects in these three verticals in 2018 and 19. Infrastructure, we built the biggest the data center we are now building the government, the G Cloud, PNG Cloud for the government of Egypt. Another project we are doing actually with Etisalat for the new capital, the city operations center. Etisalat got part of this project, and we got another part, which is the IoT, the smart meters. So we are providing the smart meters for water, electricity, and gas for the new capital of Egypt. And another project we just got awarded like only 2 weeks ago, which is the public enterprises automation, ERP, we're transforming, which is the biggest digital transformation in public enterprises in the Middle East. It's happening in Egypt. We just got awarded this project only 2 weeks ago. So these are three verticals that we are currently, beside the education, there are 4. We have plans to go for other verticals. This is on the different verticals in digital transformation. Also, we have plans from 20 to 24 to expand in at least 15 to 20 countries in Africa.
Thank you. It seems that Egypt is coming up again to be one of the key economic players in the region and key technology players in the region, which is good news, I think, for everyone. Jacek, final question, and I'm sorry we didn't get too much from the audience, but you're now talking about building an operator from scratch, right? And you have a new license. It doesn't happen too often on nowadays, but you have the opportunity to build it to be digital from the ground up. What are you thinking about? Where are you heading in terms of building that operator to be really digital from the ground up? Digital internally and digital in the way you actually engage with customers. Your perspective in a short period of time, please.
Look, I would not go into too much detail about Vodafone Oman, because you can imagine that we're bringing all the best from the digital experience, but maybe give you a little bit of perspective of Vodafone Group concerning digital transformation. A year ago, our group CEO announced the target of saving 1.2 billion euro in European OPEX by March 21, which sounds like a big number. However, we think that we can address with digital transformation OPEX of 7.5 billion, which is quite a huge number. So this is something which is happening and the appetite is big. By the way, our results showing, and it's not only Vodafone, a lot of operators I see around the world have the same kind of situation, that revenue growing slower than EBITDA. Because of digital transformation, you're saving a lot of OPEX because of the advantage of digital, and therefore your EBITDA is growing faster than your revenue. But of course, what is our appetite to push revenue, so to use our new situation in Europe, to push our new technologies, to make sure that the growth is there. And last but not least, I fully agree with what Hazem said before, that we as industry must ensure that there is no value leakage this time with 5G towards OTTs. And will be a lot of ecosystem and partnerships required with ICT players, with other players. Only 3 days ago, Vodafone and Amazon announced a partnership where Amazon selected for Europe, US, Korea, and Japan partners from AWS Wavelength, which basically is edge computing coupled with 5G to get latency, application latency, not radio latency, application latency under below 10 milliseconds for mission-critical applications. And this is an example of application where it would be very difficult for OTT to have application which has application latency below 10 milliseconds. You have to have edge computing, you have to have 5G working together. Mm-hmm. So these ecosystems will be seen more and more in all regions, including, of course, MENA. And again, there will be a lot of players, including ICT, including infrastructure players from different fields coming together. I think it's only the beginning of the story.
Great. Thank you, Jacek. And I want to thank you for the time, and thank you, panelists, for making this an interesting discussion. So we're going to conclude the panel here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.